Well, hello, Venters. If you're new to the channel, please think about subscribing and then put your shoes on and think about joining me for a walk. We walk every single day, we drink water, and we try our best to avoid sugar, all in the name of becoming a healthier version of ourselves. And we want you to join us. One of the best ways to get healthy is just to take on a daily walking routine. Every half-hour walk you take with me burns about 150 calories. That's about the same amount of calories that's in the can of Coke that you're drinking every day. So if you can eliminate the Coke while walking with me, you'll be losing a lot of calories and ultimately losing some weight. Guys, I heard what I thought was the funniest story of the dumbest criminal ever. But after I tell you what happened to her, I'm going to tell you why I think it's really, really scary for a person like me. So 25-year-old Aletha Sumter, a Whataburger employee, decided she was going to steal a customer's credit card who came through her drive-through line. He leaves the card with her. She pays for his order, but in addition to that, I guess she wrote down the information to his card. She paid $400 to the Coweta County State Court Probation Office. A couple of days later, the guy finds out there's been a charge on his card. He calls the Coweta County State's office there in Noonan, Georgia, and they end up just basically matching up who the payment was for. And they found out it was for none other than Aletha Sumter. The reason I find this crazy is I, like many of you, give my debit card and sometimes a credit card, not a credit card in my case, but I'm sure in your guys' cases, we give our cards to these people in drive-through lines all the time. Holy moly, how many times have they done a charge on us and we might not have even been paying attention? She was dubbed the world's dumbest criminal. She was arrested ultimately by the Sonoy police, but check this out, it gets worse. Police gave her a week to turn herself in, and apparently she freaked out and left the state. Some of the people in the comments section were saying that when people in Georgia leave the state, it's kind of code for they went over to Florida. And a lot of them were laughing and joking about that. Apparently that's a funny joke in Georgia. They sneak over the county line into Florida. That reminds me of the Dukes of Hazzard. Do you remember Bo and Luke Duke would constantly go over the county line, and then Boss Hogg and Roscoe and them couldn't arrest them? God, I used to love the Dukes of Hazzards. For some reason, the younger generation has made them sound like they're just a bunch of racist bigots, and that if you like the Dukes of Hazzard, you're the same way. And it's like, golly, everybody that watched that show loved it. If you were a Bo and Luke Duke fan, let me know down below. I have a feeling every single one of us were. And even though they were on the wrong side of the law, they were still our heroes, so to speak. And I think we all could admit that we used to love that orange General Lee car as well. Heck of a car, heck of a car. Well, it looks like there might be some sort of accident, because I see a lot of people. Whenever you see a stream of cars through a neighborhood, it usually means there's an accident. I wish I wore my Walk Talk Vent t-shirt for all the potential fans. So after this went viral, apparently a lot of news stations in the area had her face plastered over the TV. She reached out to the Sonoy Police Department and said, hey, is there any way you could give me a second chance to turn myself in? And apparently she's going to be turning herself in Wednesday. So I thought that was interesting. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. And in case you're wondering, this happened back in January. What made this even more comical is she was initially in trouble and using that credit card to pay her court fees because of a misdemeanor marijuana charge. In other words, she got caught with a little bit of marijuana. She wasn't allowed to, but it was a misdemeanor. And I assume after paying her court fees, she would have been probably in the free and clear. Now, because of this, Sonoy has issued felony warrants for identification theft and credit card fraud. That is something else, isn't it? I notice whenever they show people getting pulled over, and it happens to people of all backgrounds, they get pulled over. It's just a simple tail light or some sort of weird, infraction, nothing major. And the cops even tell them, I would have just written you a ticket, you would have been on your way. But now because you left and because you did this, that, and the other, now you've got all these additional charges. It happens all the time. What is it called? Failure to comply with a police order, evading capture, right? Sometimes they'll have their girlfriend or their boyfriend start yelling at the cops and they end up getting some extra charges for interfering with a police investigation, right? They get all these things thrown on them, and it's like all you had to do is just kind of take your L. I think that's what happens in this world. Do you guys agree? We have these embarrassing situations where really the only thing you can do is just take the L. And for some reason, some of us just refuse to do it. I think that's the same reason why so many people have a hard time apologizing or telling people, hey, that was my mistake. Some people just, for whatever reason, they think they're perfect. And instead of just coming out and being honest and saying, hey, my bad, they end up, basically lying to people. Oh, looks like we got a Trump fan here. Look at that. Woohoo! And then if you look here, you can see this cart. I don't know, I'm assuming some homeless person brought their cart here to the corner and then just left it there for safekeeping. Real quick, before we get into these people's comments, let me know your thoughts. Have you ever in your life took something that was basically a molehill, and because you lied and were deceitful and kept that lie going, it ended up turning into, a giant mountain of crap, right? Sometimes we make mountains out of molehills. I think that's exactly what Aletha Sumpter did. The one thing that makes it forgivable in my eyes is the fact that she's 25, because I think we all know when we're 25, we're basically just big kids. With that being said, when I say forgivable, let her do whatever punishment she has to, whether it's probation, whether it's jail time, whether it's a fine. Those are things where you're not physically trying to hurt people and take their life. At the same time, it freaks the crap out of me, because how easy would it be when you hand over your debit or your credit card to the person in McDonald's or Burger King? How easy would it be for them to go on Amazon real quick and use it for something? Holy moly, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more. And if you don't keep track of your balances and stuff, which I think we're all guilty of from time to time, holy moly, you could end up having a lot of money missing from your account. Have you ever, at any time in your life, been so broke that you got to the point where you didn't want to answer the phone because you knew it was going to be bill collectors, and you didn't want to look at your checking account balance because you knew it was going to be overdrawn, or you were going to be going into your overdraft account to pay your bills? I wonder how many people end up getting thieved in those moments, right? You go long periods of time without answering the phone. What if it's somebody from your credit card company asking about some unusual charge? You might owe $10,000 and you might have payments in the arrears, but the last thing you want to find out is that they were trying to call to see if that last $1,000 order that you just placed was legit, and you're too afraid to answer the phone. On the flip side, what if somebody just used your card for little $5, $10, $15 purchases? If that's like a small amount, it might not ever register to you. And so I'm sure, again, we probably have millions of us here in the country that have been slowly but surely being siphoned of money, and we don't even realize it. And the reason we know this is probably true is because, don't they say that most of us have 2 or 3 paid subscriptions that we've forgotten about through the years? If we're all averaging 2 or 3 subscriptions, who's to say Bubba, our brother-in-law, doesn't have our card number there next to his desk just in case he wants to buy something from Amazon or eBay? I have given my debit card to some shady looking characters at Whataburger, just like this person did. the reason people call her the dumbest criminal is because obviously the guy noticed the charge and he called the Coweta County to find out about the charge, and they were able to match it up to Aletha Sumter's payment, right? So it makes her look dumb because there's a paper trail that leads right back to her. But what if this guy would have been the type of guy that never checked his bank balances, had enough money in there to safely pay his bills? I could totally see people like him paying for other people's bills and not even knowing, not even noticing. These days are some of my favorite walking, where it's like 85 degrees, so it's pretty warm, but it's so breezy and windy today. I'm just guessing it's probably like a 15 mile per hour wind. I don't even know windy conditions because I live in Arizona where there's not much wind, but it's windy enough where it feels like a nice cool fan or almost borderline air conditioning hitting you. Feels really, really nice. With that being said, doesn't 85 this time of year seem a little hot? Holy moly. Hey, there's that red big rig from Oklahoma that's missing. Do you guys remember that story we talked about a couple months back? There's that red big rig, it's missing. Captain Crunch, FPU, says she should run for mayor now. I like that comment because my thinking is if the mayors do all these goofy things and get away with it, then maybe we should let Aletha Sumter get away with it too. And I wouldn't be surprised if she did run for mayor. It seems like all the mayors in this country of ours are a little bit shady anyway. Watcher World says she seems like the type to try to claim a reward for turning herself in. Hey, by the way, I'm sure someone out there has actually tried to do that before. Imagine finding out you got a reward out for your arrest. Imagine you get a family member or friend to turn you in so that you and her or him could split the reward money. I bet that's happened before. As a matter of fact, you know what? I've met so many sideways characters and shady people in my life. I think the next time I meet a shady character, I'm going to make that deal with him or her. I'm going to say, hey, I want you to make me a promise. If you're ever in trouble and they've got a reward out for your arrest, let's you and me make a deal here in advance. Can you picture that phone call? Somebody calls the detective, hey, I'd like to turn in Aletha Sumter. All right, who is this? Well, I'd like to remain anonymous. Aletha, is this you? Yeah, who's this? So here's a question I have for you, venters. Have you guys been walking? If you have been walking for a half hour each day, do you enjoy it enough where maybe this last month you could think about doubling it and taking 2 walks? You know, every time you do something for a long enough time, your body kind of gets used to it. But if your body's used to a half-hour walk now and you enjoy it, why not add another half hour somewhere? You know, they say at intersections, people will try to turn left, and it puts them in a compromising spot where they can get T-boned, right? And whenever that happens, if someone loses their life, I assume it's like this everywhere, but I know it's like that here in Arizona. They pretty much tape off the roads and make it where you can't use that road for pretty much the rest of the day, or at least for a couple of hours. And so yeah, if we have accidents out here, it really does slow things down. I'd imagine in places like Los Angeles and Chicago and stuff, I imagine accidents make things exceedingly slow, incredibly slow down. God, every time I talk, a big gust of wind hits me in the mouth as if to say, Jesse, shut those lips. But I'm gonna have to insist you guys shut those lips, do some nose breathing. You figure after 340 days or however long I've been out here with you guys, you figure I would sound like a radio talk show host by now. My God, I can barely spit out a sentence some days. JOOL, I'm assuming it's Jewel, 4867 says, she turned a fine into a felony. What a genius. Yeah, I think what we ought to do as a people is I think we ought to go back to using commercials for public service announcements. Here in Arizona, I have seen hundreds of commercials that used to tell you to put your seatbelt on, otherwise you're gonna get a fine, right? And there's other commercials where they would warn that if you drink and drive, we're gonna catch you. Well, why don't we pay for public service announcements to tell people that half the time you get pulled over, you're probably gonna get a ticket or a warning and asked to just drive safely. When you go ahead and you just ignore pulling over and you start to endanger lives, all that happens is you turn little things that are just slaps on the wrist, and all of a sudden it's going to be hard for you to get a job in the future. There's a lot of employers out there that if you have a felony on your record, they don't even want to think about hiring you. Now, there's more and more employers out there that will work with you if you have a background, but why would you want to put yourself through that when you just got pulled over for having a tail light out or a brake light out, you know? Just seems kind of crazy to me. I think we could prevent at least a little bit of that if we let all these young kids and young adults know, if the cop pulls you over, just take the L. Go get your ticket. As a matter of fact, you know what I would tell my son or daughter? Take the ticket and then just go to driving school. Driving school can eliminate half the tickets you get. That's what's so crazy. It's like you're really doing your kids a disservice if you don't have these talks with them. See, that's where people go online and they just want to make an excuse. No, Jesse, people are treated unfairly. You know what? People are treated unfairly all the time. But when you take something small and you compound it and make it something big, isn't that you treating yourself unfairly? I mean, seriously, how many times do you watch videos and the cops say, my God, I was just going to give him a ticket and let him be on his way? I've even seen a couple videos where the cops were really cool and they were literally going to let the guy off with a warning, but he wanted to be confrontational. Shouldn't we be telling our kids and having commercials up that say, hey, if you're going to be confrontational with somebody on the football field or somebody on the wrestling mat. Don't be confrontational with our state troopers, with our police department. It just doesn't make sense. That's why I think these lawyers that constantly do these YouTube videos and they audit the cops because the cops are doing something wrong. You know, when you do that, pretty soon you create a society where everybody that's actually breaking laws wants to audit the cop. That's why every single time a cop pulls over somebody, there's an ensuing argument. That's not the way we should go about policing our citizens. We should tell our citizens right from the get-go, most of the stuff you do is forgivable. Most of the stuff you pay a fine and you go about your way. If you really feel like your civil rights or, you know, your rights as a human being have been damaged by the police department, well, you know, there's steps to do it appropriately. I don't think it's appropriate to just evade capture and take off, you know, and do crazy stuff. The Skaggs family says she made a mistake. Now that's because they spoke to her lawyer and her lawyer's like, she's a really nice person. She's not crazy. She just made a mistake. And the Skaggs family says she didn't make a mistake. She made a decision to steal and use a customer's card. A mistake would be charging the wrong customer's order to another customer. And I totally agree. She obviously didn't make a mistake. She made it on purpose. And I think that's where our law system is backwards too. We have a lot of people that do a lot of bad stuff on purpose, and we like to pretend like they made a mistake. Jesse, you know what they mean. She made a mistake. It was a character mistake, but it's not necessarily a permanent mark on her. And I agree. This is one of those things that she should be able to go, pay a little fee, get some probation. If you absolutely need to throw her in jail for a little while. But you know, this isn't something that I would say keep her in jail forever. But at the same time, again, even though she's 25, her parents didn't think to tell her that's stupid, that whenever you do something with electronic payments, there's going to be a paper trail. You know, instead you got the internet telling her how stupid she is when her parents should have told her Sweetheart, you're stupid. Don't try to, don't try to fool people. I used to tell my son, because he was like totally not stealth, not sneaky, I'd be like, son, you're not stealth. When someone tells you you're not sneaky, you're not stealth, that's their way of saying you're not quick enough, you're not gonna fool anybody. And I think we need to come to grips with the fact that most of us aren't quick and smart enough to fool the authorities. Quit trying to fool people, do things the right way. How come our parents aren't telling us that anymore? It baffles the mind. Carla, Mala, Sean, I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.